Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Well, I say us, it's Isaac here from Solibri. I'm on my own today, just doing this presentation and demonstration for you. So today's workshop series session is all about rules-based checking for a reason. And I'm going to get started now. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. And if you have any questions, feel free to put those into the question box or the chat window if you want to communicate with others on the webinar as well. So thanks again for joining me. Just to get things started, as I said, Isaac here from Solibri, the account manager for the UK and Ireland. If there are any follow-up questions after today's session, then you're more than welcome to get in touch with me, especially during the session. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. I'll get into that in a moment. This is going to be recorded, this session, and you can ask questions, as I've said, in the chat window or the question window for those that are still joining. And we are going to put a couple of polls out today, so feel free to answer those, and I'll submit the answers on the screen. And a bit comical, but since you're all probably working from home, I'm sure you know where the toilets are. So today's agenda is an introduction to Solibri. This is very top level, layman's terms, if you will, nice overview of Solibri for those that are either not familiar, new to our software, new to what we do. And I'm going to do a nice overview demonstration so that you can see what the software looks like and how it works. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Solibri differentiate ourselves to the rest of the market and why we're here and what our vision is. The solutions that we provide, I'll then, as I said, do a demonstration of our product family. We'll do a bit of a summary at the end, and then I'll open things up for a Q&A. I want to cut right to the chase here and say some common things that I hear. So myself working in a sales role, being as close to customers as you could possibly get, some of the things that I hear are, we already do flash detection. It's hard to sometimes justify the cost of new software. And this is really just opening up some of the challenges that people are facing when it comes to looking at Solibri. And throughout my presentation, I'm going to counter some of these and say why Solibri adds value beyond some of these statements. We aren't ready for the level of QA quality assurance just yet. We don't have time to learn new software. If some of these things are relatable to you, it's not necessarily a negative, it's just some of the challenges that people are facing. And I want to get into some of the detail on how Solibri can help you to counter some of that stuff and why it's not always applicable to what we do. And quality assurance and quality control in our industry, well, if you just take a step back for a moment and compare us to what other industries are doing, it's really obvious. I'm probably the biggest critic when it comes to certain things, whether it's food, whether it's video games, every other industry that we're familiar with, whether it's a consumable product or, agriculture, for example, then there are such stringent and obvious quality assurance measures in place. And today I'm going to get into a little bit of detail on, well, what are ours and how do we stack up, and are we as competitive as others when it comes to quality assurance, and do we really care? So I'm going to get into some of that detail. One of the things I hear quite a lot is not to say that people feel quality assurance is client feedback, but it's generally the way people say, well, our models and our information and our data has got to be quality assured because everyone's happy. The people we're sending this to, they haven't got a problem, and that's not what quality assurance is all about. Quality assurance is taking that reactive mindset of people have said it's good enough to I know it's good enough. And here are some sort of typical examples of that. The client was happy and told us the quality met the brief. Well, we've not had an issue up to this point, or a major issue, you should say. Sometimes issues aren't as obvious as a numerical or financial problem. Sometimes it's spending 3 days doing a job when in fact it could have been done in 10 minutes, and that isn't an apparent issue, but it is if you consider time spent to do silly little jobs. Again, luckily we haven't been in a position where the models have been questioned and factored into a potential lawsuit or dispute. And then also the pride and the confidence in that we feel we know what we're doing. And I'm not going to say that the UK we're arrogant, but arrogant in a confident way, in a good way, to say that up to this point there has been quite a commonality of people saying, I know what I'm doing, and I don't necessarily need to check that every 10 minutes of every day, so that I can say that this is quality assured because I've been doing this for 20, 30 years, for example. And to turn that all on its head, it is checklist confidence, if I was to summarize it in a certain way. It's being able to deliver your information and your models without having even possibility of that pulled into question. So we use methods such as you know, a standardized checklist, a workflow, a piece of software, these sorts of processes that help not just the person that is most confident within that company that has been doing it for 20, 30 years, but for those new people that come into the company straight out of university, straight from another company doing something slightly differently. And we are incredibly infectious as an industry, and people do gravitate around from company to company, bringing with them new levels of information and knowledge. But if the company themselves had a better strategy in terms of how quality assurance is controlled within that organization, then it takes away the whole false, you know, the fallacy that people are confident in what they're doing without really being able to prove it. And to be able to take pride in the process, it's not to see it as a barrier by any means. It's a time investment, of course it is, but without it, then we're delivering, you know, potential botch jobs. And the risk of that sort of problem in design phase and in this construction industry is that the issues are so much greater than if I went to the shop and I bought chicken, and yes, I got, you know, tummy bug from that, and I was ill, but that 2 days I could spend, you know, for somebody that maybe didn't quality assure, didn't store it in a fridge, didn't run through those sorts of processes, just to provide an analogy there, is a lot less great than potential, you know, death, potential risk, potential fire, potential loads of different things that happen in the construction industry at site level. So it's just to sort of turn the opinion into fact and structure. So I'll take one of the examples in particular, and that was already do clash detection. Well, I'll counter that one right away and say, is clash detection a full quality assurance and quality control workflow for our models and for our information? And I'll put a list of things up on screen that go beyond clash detection. So this, to name a few, basically, in terms of additional areas at the design phase that are workflows that take us beyond clash detection. I'll get into quite a few of these today, but it's not the entire process. Great, it's the starting point, it's a segue into what, you know, model checking is all about, but there's so much more that we should be considering and factoring in. In terms of justifying the cost, well, like anything, you know, sometimes it's quite difficult to justify the cost of software. It's not always obvious to us. Other areas are really obvious. You know, you spend thousands of pounds on a new laptop because you needed a completely new hardware to do the job better. You know, an office space so that we can work more effectively. But within software, these are the sort of main factors that we try and consider, and that is, you know, the time and energy spent to do certain jobs, the potential new revenue. So this is opening up the door for potential new business. We see it quite a lot. People say to us, oh, we sell it that we use Solibri. We tell the rest of the market, we tell our clients that we use Solibri because we want them to know that we're endorsing quality at the standard that is led by the industry, and people understand that, and they know that there's more that Solibri can do that anyone else can. So potential money saving, as I said, in terms of being able to de-risk projects, being able to find issues and stop them from getting to site level, being able to see a clear return on investment, or a process improvement, slash doing laborious tasks and them taking ages. So a lot of these sort of factors definitely come into play. Some of them are clearer than others, but that's part of my job, is to help our industry realize the benefit of what is beyond what we typically do today. So here are some positives for why people have come to us, basically. Reasons why they came to us in the first place. You know, it might have been that there was a supply chain demand, the client down to the contractor, down to the architect, we're all sort of trying to harmonize the way that these stakeholders are involved in a project, the way they deliver information, potentially using Open BIM as a standard, you know, IFC, BCF, COBE, those sorts of files. It might be that it's just so frustrating internally with being able to have to check for components and check for data, and being able to you know, do series of different tasks on your models that could take a lot of time. Could I do that quicker? That's why people come to us. And it might be, and this is a bit archaic now, but advancing BIM levels and meeting certain industry standards such as ISO 19650, again, huge factors in why people come to us. So there's just a list, a few to think about. If this stuff's relatable to you, then you know, we can start to get some more meat on the bones, but this is really the top level reasons why people come to us. And we do get contractors say to us, well, hang on a minute, if we're placed, you know, sort of 30 in the leaderboards, but a company in 50 or 60 is using Solibri, then, you know, why are they smaller than us and using your software? What are we missing out, if that makes sense? And I want to share with you, sort of from the horse's mouth, why people have said that Solibri has added value to their organization. So I'll just read the bold bits because they're the bits I picked out were the most important. So you got Tim Elliott saying that he wouldn't have been able to hand over the 6 new build projects for the DFE had it not been without Solibri to be able to deliver the COBE information. Johan said, you know, and make sure that the modeling information is according to requirements, being able to deliver against the BIM execution plan. You got David who said that visualizing carbon and cost at Swaco has added gained a new value. So another area of Solibri that we're going to probably get into detail a little bit more on next year is sustainability. And feel pride in their work from Joel. It's a huge part of it. You got Solibri is not only clash detection for us, which we cannot do in other tools, and lastly, we can assure that the quality we produce is trustworthy. So not hearing it from me, hearing it from the customers. So challenges in the construction industry, and as we know, in terms of our worldwide market value is a huge amount. And one of the scary factors though is how much work is rework in our sector, you know, potentially 30%. And a lot of that's due to ineffective communication, as it says, planning and collaboration. And, you know, how can we tackle that issue head on? How can we work better to project timelines and timescales, and how can we control the budgets and the cost of potential issues from design phase ending up on site? So Solibri's mission and what we're here for. So as we know, design issues do end up on site and they become problems, and we're all probably familiar with them. That's quite presumptuous, but I'm sure we are in this sector. Solibri, our background, we were the first to bring a real level of comprehensive quality of control and assurance to the industry in 1999. These are the challenges that I think I've already said that speak for themselves. You know, we want to de-risk projects. We need to de-risk projects. We need to prevent those unforeseen costs, deliver on time, standardize software workflows that are suitable for everybody in all projects, and then become confident and competent to deliver against a series of those things I put on the list before: building regulations, standards, customer expectations. So in a summary, based on that, our mission statement is we want to create a digital future of better builds, and our vision harmonizes that to become the de facto standard of quality in the construction industry. So I am just going to play this video, and I'm going to make sure that the audio is not too loud for everybody. This is only a minute.
From office to site, owners to subcontractors, Solibri offers full workflow support to all your construction projects. In the office, Solibri is your gatekeeper for quality, combining all the different models into one, to perform highly advanced checks on them, and to make collaboration between all the involved parties effortless. On site, the same information is seamlessly available for site managers, along with taking off the needed quantities and other information from the model. For the subcontractors and other involved parties, Solibri allows all stakeholders to view the model anywhere, anytime, and get the information they need to get their job done. Give everyone in your project the right tool for the right job, and start your journey to quality with Solibri.
Okay. Thank my marketing team for that one. So yeah, sort of a higher level introduction to what Solibri is all about. And to break that down into what our product family is, we've got Solibri Office, which I'm going to showcase today, talk a little bit about what the rule sets are and the core value of our product offering. Solibri Site, for those that don't know, is for those that need to take information out of the model. And not to argue with my own product family, but to argue with those that just want to use Site is, are you working with people that are using Solibri Office, and are the models that you're looking to take information out of quality assured to begin with? So it works effectively for a workflow of having had Solibri Office do a lot of the checks, then to go to somebody with Solibri Site to be able to take the information out, use information takeoffs, you know, use classifications effectively, so long as the information is accurate. And then Solibri Anywhere is our free model viewer. A lot of you might be familiar with that, but it's just to enable you to open an IFC, navigate your way around the model, and it's all free. And then Enterprise is just the sort of scalable offering that we have for our whole product family that enable anybody with 50, 100, 150 users plus to be able to access the software as and when they need it and be able to scale the usage accordingly. This is a technical breakdown of what those products are. As you can see, the differences that Solibri Office provides you with the ability to federate models. It has the rule sets within it. You've got auto run, which is a way in which you can automate a lot of the checking and the federation of models. So rather than having to do things manually, you can go home at night, click a button, come back in the morning, it's federated your models, it's run some checks for you. So that's really nice to have that included in the actual Office suite. It wasn't before, about a year or two ago, but now it is. So that's a huge cost-saving additional tool. And apart from that, as I've said, everything else just sort of is as I've stated already. So let's get a little bit into IFC. This is our segue into the Solibri Office Workflow presentation. So as a lot of you are aware, began in 1994 as the Industry Alliance for Interoperability, and since 2005, IFC is now developed and maintained by Building Smart. In 2021, naturally with BIM growing in both UK and internationally, it's become inevitable that we need to exchange modelling information for all stakeholders, regardless of the software they're using. So I'm just going to, at that point in time, I'm just going to throw a quick poll up on the screen, just so I can get a feel for you guys that are here with me. So bear with me 1 second. If you wouldn't mind answering that for me, that would be fantastic. I'll give it another 15 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. So these are the results. I thought I'd share them back with you. Primarily, everybody is a Revit user. We have got some others in the room, and Vectorworks and ArchiCAD as well. So you should all be familiar with IFC. Some of you more than others, but everybody can deliver it and everybody can export it from their systems. Apart from the others, I can't guarantee that, but I'm sure you probably can. So thank you for doing that for me. So let's move on to the exporting to IFC part then. So we're working in Revit, you're exporting to IFC. One of the major challenges that people face when they either receive an IFC or export to IFC is understanding the level of information at the relevant time. So components, the geometry, the context, the relationships, the family objects, the way in which we're exporting from these authoring tools is slightly different, but fundamentally what Solibri wants at the other end is that information to help and support to conform to the standards, protocols, regulations, and naturally the best practice. We don't want to get in a position where we've got all the way to Solibri only to find that the information hadn't been exported from the authoring tool in the first place, or that you'd received an IFC from an authoring tool from a third party and that information wasn't in there. And yes, we get that almost every day. So this is a really important slide just to consider this, because when we get into the Solibri Office workflow, that's the first point, is to take our IFC, bring that into Solibri. It might be multiple, we might be doing a federation process here, but fundamentally what we end up with is a Solibri model project, and the project itself it's optimized. So we've now created relationships between components. We can use classifications and we can work within the Solibri environment in a more seamless way with the data that we've been given. Some of the initial sort of basic things you can do: visualize, navigate, merge, as I've said, federation, coordinate our models. But where Solibri comes into its own is with classifications, fundamentally there to help us identify what we are looking at, see the wood through the trees and actually be able to identify both components, both spaces, no matter what we want to classify in our models. It could be make the architectural model blue and make the structural model red, for example. I want to see the differences. I want to see where things are poking out. I want to do fire stopping so that I can see the ratings for the doors and the walls. There's tons of different ways that you can classify what you have exported and what you've taken into Solibri. It's also a huge prerequisite for the checking process, because instead of having to search for all windows and do a clash detection, for example, against all doors and all other components in that room, what we can use the classifications for is to already group the windows together based on type, or based on whatever you want to base it on, in terms of the information that we've got for the windows. And we can then run a check that's built based on the classification. So it's not integral, but it's really helpful. In the checking environment of Solibri Office, we need to define what we're checking for. All projects are different, and it might be that that definition is it varies. So, but what we're trying to do is identify problems, make decisions, and find real and potential issues at the earliest stage possible, because as history tells us, it's cheaper that way. It's cheaper to find the issues at design than it is anywhere else in the life cycle of a project. We can base the issues that we're finding on severity, and we define that in the rule itself. So, huge problem, low problem, easy traffic light system. And that sort of summarizes the initial workflow part of Solibri Office. Once we've done our checks, we found our problems, and we found a series of issues, we want to communicate them to people. And you can do that a number of ways. BCF, BIM collaboration format, enables you to share the issues that you found back to the authoring tool so that the changes can be made in a dynamic way. The alternative might be using Excel, which you can also do if you want to have reports of the bigger picture and the list view of all of the issues that you found, but it's going to then require you to have to go back into the authoring tool and find those issues manually. So BCF is far more dynamic and it's far more interactive with all of the tools. And we've also got an API there and a BCF Live connector, enabling you to push the issues you're finding in Solibri out to issue management systems like BIM Track and BIM Collab, for example, so that others in the team and others working on this project can see the value that you're getting out of the software. One of the new things that we're working on and we'll hopefully have delivered by the end of the year is a series of new fire stopping rules, and we've been working very closely with a big handful of our customers to help to deliver what is needed in terms of fire stopping. Egress analysis is already in the software, but I believe there's a few tweaks and changes being made, and this is all to the benefit of our API. Being able to use a third-party developer to deliver these rules in a seamless process and quick amount of time enables us to be far more dynamic to the outstanding problems in our industry. And if fire stopping is relatable to you, then get in touch, because some of those rule sets will save you hopefully a ton of money and a ton of time, like they are helping our customers that are working on us with this. Let me just move this control panel out of the way so I can see what's next. Information takeoff. So naturally, unless we've communicated the problems out to the people that needed to fix it, they have then fixed it. Now let's work in a positive world where those issues have been remedied and they're no longer existent. Now we can safely say that we can do information takeoffs, we can take the data out, know it's true, know it's accurate, we can deliver COBie because we know that the information has been mapped correctly and it's been quality assured through this life cycle of Solibri. And it's only at that point really can we say that this is reliable and this is fit for purpose. So taking us right back to the very, very beginning when I said that quality is not what the client's feedback is, quality assurance is this. This is taking a process, standardizing it, and when you deliver, you're the one telling the customer or the recipient of this information it has been quality assured, and that just de-risks everything to do with your involvement. And this is a very general overview, and obviously we'll get into some detail in terms of what the checking processes are going to be, what sort of identifications can we do with classifications, which I'll jump into in just a moment's time. So in terms of integrations with other softwares, this is a journey for us. This has been something we've prioritized this year and will continue to prioritize next year. But if any of those products that you're working with and you're curious about the developments that we've made to unlock these integrations, then please do get in touch with us, because this is a huge part of Solibri's endorsement with Open BIM and just trying to open doors and let all stakeholders on a project work effectively with what they're finding in Solibri. So I'm going to come back to the product family a little bit later, but now I'm just going to jump into the software. So if you bear with me 1 second. Maybe a good time to do another poll whilst this is loading actually. So let me just open this up. So I'm going to ask this question now, and then I might ask it again a little bit later. Are there any specific rules you'd like to learn about? This is for those that are probably familiar with your own personal requirements for what you feel the software you'd want to check for, versus what I'm about to show you it is actually capable of. So if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. And the nature of the answers here aren't specifically tailored to which rules, it's more, let's have a conversation basically. Okay, thank you very much. So that's really good to hear. It's mixed results in terms of people, wanting or already feeling like they want to have a conversation with me, and then a few people who are happy just to watch a webinar, and that's exactly what I'm here for. So this is the product option selection window that we get, and this harmonizes with the products that I mentioned to you before, Solibri Office, Site, and Anywhere. Just a quick tip: if you click on this, remember this next time, it will remember you next time. So make sure that if you go into the right one, if you're going to do that, I typically don't press it because I've got to then go into the settings and change that. So let's open this up. Also, if somebody else is in your Solibri Office license and you have it default set to Office and you can't get in it because someone else is in the software that you need, then it will throw you into Solibri Anywhere. So you're never going to get no access to software. You can always get into a version of Solibri. So this is Solibri Office in all its glory, and the first thing that we really want to do is define who we are, tell it the role that we are looking to play, whether you're an architect, a structural engineer, contractor. It's a canvas. It's not a blank canvas because there's loads that come out of the box, but the way that this is defined is based on your preference on what you want to get out of the software. So nice and simple, it's all tailorable. In this case, I'm going to use BIM validation architectural. You can specify a description in case other people want to load this role up and do the same job that you're intending to do. We've got a series of rule sets, 3 rule sets in there. This is represented by these gold stars. The silver stars just basically say what has been allowed into this role that can be added and can be removed. Classifications, we'll get into those in a little bit more detail, and some standard information takeoffs, just so I can show you how quick and easy it is to do those in Solibri as well. So the next thing we do is we take our models in. I am going to federate, so I'm going to take our Office IFC and the structural model. So just by opening those, just let this load. For those that are curious, I'm not on any high-end Mac. This is just a standard 16 gig RAM machine. It might even be 8 gig, but nonetheless. So here we go. So it's loaded in our models, and the first thing that we want to do is we want to define the actual models themselves. So this little window comes up and it asks us for the discipline, the category. So in Solibri Building, I'm going to put ARC in here. Notice over in the background in the model tree, we've still got A and B, and we've got the 2 different types. And in here, I'm going to put STR. Now, when I hit OK, it's going to change. And now I have a prefix associated to the 2 models. So if I go into the detail of these 2 models and I break this model tree down, all of the components actually have that prefix associated to them. So in the columns, we can see ARC on all of the columns as well. So there's loads of ways within Solibri just initially to understand what we are looking at. If it meant that I wanted to see the ventilation model within the architectural model, I could use the tool up here to hide the roof, zoom in, and for some reason it doesn't want to show it. That's because I've loaded in the structural model and not the ventilation model. Let me load that one in as well. Here we go. I'm going to do the exact same process here. So now I have my my ventilation model. I'm going to put a short name on there, and I'm going to change the discipline down to ventilation as well. And now if I want to see my ventilation model, I can. But just sort of going back to everything and doing that same process again. If I hide the roof, now I can see my ventilation model in there too. And you can check the sort of coordination of this, make sure that things are lined up correctly. As some of you may have noticed, there's probably a couple of issues there already, but nothing that jumps out at me that rules can't fix. So I can understand what I'm looking at here. You can use, as I've showed you, this little shopping window effect that enable me to add equals and just view the models individually. I can then add varying levels of information into here. So if I wanted to take the architectural columns and add them in, if I really wanted to on the ground floor, then I could do that just by adding them in here, and you're just adding and filtering information as per the way you want to see it. There is a few ways in which you can break the model tree down. So if I wanted to see it by actual product, then I could do that as well, and instead of just filtering by the ground floor columns, I could just see all of the columns. But you're not editing and changing any data in here, you're literally just viewing it a slightly different way. And if you want to bring everything back, there's a little brown box up there that enable you to do that. You've got varying standard views, so I can do top, front, right, I can do top, I can do quite a lot of basic functionality in here, such as give me the information. So if I click on a component, if I click on this wall here, this little information window pops up, and it gives us all of the data that has been exported to the into the IFC itself. So looking for blanks, looking for information that might be missing in here can be done manually, but then you can also use classifications to define if the information is missing as well, which I'll get into in a little bit of time. But you can see where the application was, the authoring tool that this came from. You can see the location, you can see all of the data that's been exported. But where Solibri gets clever with this is it starts to build relationships between components. So now we can see that the federated floor that this resides on is the roof. We can see that the type of this component is EW for external wall, and we can see the components that are connected to it either side, and they're hyperlinked. So if I click on this one, it takes me to the wall next door, and then I'll just move this back into the middle screen. I've got a control panel, so I can't quite see the entire thing, but we can now see the walls on either side of that. And it's fine for looking at components that are touching it on either side, but if I click on this wall at the bottom, the information changes slightly. So now I can see the containment value. I've actually clicked on the structural wall. Let me just take the architectural wall and I'll show you what I mean. So now we've got the containment value of the ground floor. We can see EW for external wall. Now we can see all of the interior walls that reside and touch this one. We can see the spaces that are associated to this wall, what the spaces are referenced for, and then the voids. So if I click on this opening, it takes me down to the window level, then I can see the filling for the window. So it's just being able to build a picture, basically, and be able to view what we're looking at here with this model in a nice click-through, seamless process in terms of all of the information that we've got. So that's the basics of navigating your way through the model. You can use a VR headset, you can use a video game controller, you can mark up, you can do section panes and section boxes in this environment, you can hide components, you can bring everything back, and you can just make it look the way you had it when you first imported it without making any changes or mistakes. So the next thing I want to show you is how classifications work. This is next level in terms of what I've showed you already. So this classification here is asking me to verify the building components for our architectural model. So if I open up this classification, I'll explain why it looks this way. So this information has been preset before we've imported the models. We're working to a naming convention here. We are specifying that if a column equals one of these types, then the name of it is a column. And that's the way that it works. Doors of these types will equal either an interior or an external door. Any components that are either new, incorrectly named in this model that aren't in my preset classification and they're incorrect will fall into this list here, the unclassified components list. So we can already do a check to say all of our architectural components, if they're not classified or if some of them aren't classified, let's name them properly. Take a screenshot of that, get that back out of the software and get it back into the authoring tool, or you can cater your classification to take the new components if it's not a mistake and it's actually supposed to be there. The way the rules work, nice and simple. It's just you're working your way through each component and classifying them based on this level of information, type, layer, pset values. And we can color coordinate based on what they are. So this is how the classifications are built and can be so different from each other. You know, in this case, I'm looking at all my architectural components. In the next classification, I might be, as I said before, cross-checking my architectural model with my structural model, or doing the fire stopping and all the different things that you can do. So we're including all of our components from our architectural model, and we're excluding spaces and openings. You can do classifications of spaces if you want to. Anything that you have within your model, you can classify as such. So that's how the classifications work, and the rule sets that I'm now about to show you, a few of them are based on classifications. So that all pulls together nicely. You can see space grouping used to be space usage here, and you can drill in some of these classifications and see what the spaces are to be used for as well. So let's get back into checking. The rule sets is the group term, so there are a series of rules within them. I'm going to handpick some of these so that we can go into some of these today, and I'll show you what it's all about. I'm just going to check the model. These rules have been defined. We know they work on this model. This is our demo model, so it should work. Let's go through some of these. As you can see, as it's doing it, it's basing the results on severity, which is what I mentioned to you earlier. Some things have been automatically accepted and some things have been automatically rejected. So let's go into the model structure check. And this is basically just a nice, simple, standard rule that says, make sure it's got a hierarchy, make sure it's got doors and windows, make sure there are unique GUID values for all components so that there aren't two duplicates of the same. As you work your way through, I'll go straight into clearance. So clearance in front of windows. By clicking on the rule itself, we've got a series of results below. Rather than seeing all of these issues listed out, it's grouped them based on what it's found. So it's found a high severity issue and a moderate severity issue. And if I go into the column too close to the window component, there are 29 instances here where the columns are too close to the windows. What it's done for us is it's put these nice dimension markers on screen. You can see the columns here and the way that the space that it's actually checking for. If I just go into the actual rule itself, and I'll open up exactly what it's doing. So in this case, this is how the classifications have come into play. We're including windows, nice and simple. This is the space, the free area space surrounding the component that's been defined. We want to check both sides of it. And you can specify a little bit of information for those that need to want to understand a little bit more in terms of what it's actually doing. And then we can have exceptions in there if we know that some components can live in that space. And in this case, there aren't any. So we're just checking that space around both windows, and it's found the columns protruding through, 29 of them, in fact. So the way that we would communicate this out to people, this issue that we found, these 29 issues here, typically, get it into Excel if it's a clash. This is a soft clash, so this isn't actually physically hitting the window. This is just looking at the function of that, or the potential function of that window, and defining that there could be an issue. What we now want to do is create that BCF I was talking to you about earlier, that BIM collaboration format. So in this case, this is basically it. This is the way that it looks as exported from Solibri. If you're using the BCF Live connector, then you can have these issues automatically take the BCFs into the BCF Live connector, and in real time upload them to an issue management system. But to do it manually, so I can show you what's going on, we can define the description, which is based on the top level. So it's a little bit technical, but if I did a description on any one of these individual examples, then the description would give me the physical dimensions and physical issues of that issue. But because we're grouping things, we're just literally going to get a group description, if that makes sense, clearing in front of Windows. We're going to reject this. We can set a status of this. We can set a due date. We can assign this to a team. We can put email addresses in here. I can put a name in here if I want to. I can see an image. If I wanted to give an example, such as one like this, I can add more images in here, and it will work its way between the two. So you can get some nice animations out of some of these as well. And then it will also list me all of the components that are related to this issue. And as I click on these, it's hyperlinked, so it will work its way through. And that is how seamless it would be within the authoring tool to be able to locate some of these issues and have them fixed. It's going to tell me where these issues are located, and the fact that I actually made this slide myself. You don't need to hit any save buttons each time, because that would just take too long. So you just close it and it automatically rejects it. And if I wanted to create a presentation, I could do so in the communication area, but I want to spend a little more time going through some of these rules and what they're doing. So there are other problems in here, but I won't spend too long on the same rule. Clearance in front of doors, sorry. So you can see the same thing. Put this on pan. So in this case here, you can see that it's checking for the clearances in front of doors. I won't bother doing slides each time because that just takes too long. You've seen the process now, but this one is checking the clearance above suspended ceilings. So if I just show you, there are 7 suspended ceilings. If I want to make that a little bit clearer, I can actually click through these and it will highlight them for us. I say that should highlight them for us. I can highlight them by doing it here as well. That's my suspended ceiling. You get down to the detail. This is the nice thing about it, is you can actually start to work your way into the detail of the rule by just clicking through. So you get the bigger picture, and then if you want to see the real details, you can do exactly what I just did there. So this is that single suspended ceiling, which is too close to the slab above. And there are little dimension markers. This is one of the hardest to see. So let's see if I can do it. There you go. 260 mil is the gap. Now, okay, that was a little tricky to find that out, but I don't need to do that. That's just for my own sanity. What I can do is right click on this rule, add a slide, and I can do the exact same thing. So ground floor, and I'll show you, this is the group level, clearance above suspended ceilings. But if I did this on an individual level, such as the one I had open, and I right click, add a slide, now, sorry, bear with me a second. Now my information's changed. So clearance above suspended ceilings, there are 2 components listed in this example on the ground floor, and the minimum distance is 400 mil. So you don't even need to articulate what's happening here. It tells you, and it can pre-populate that information for you. So we reject this. We can then communicate this to somebody again. It's not the best image, but you can actually see the components listed here as well. Like so, I've actually got my structural components in there as well, which isn't something I normally do, but it's there. So there's a ton of different rules in here. Let's just have another quick look at some of this other stuff. I won't spend too long on these. So let's just check the components above columns. So these columns are supposed to be supporting the slab above, and it's floating and they're not doing anything. So again, same process. I'd add a slide and I'd put that into my communication window because that's a bit of an issue. This is more sort of building regulation standard, this one. So this is checking for there must be a sliding door next to the revolving door. One thing that this rule is doing, which is really nice, is it's actually created a radius around the revolving door, which you can define both to the space it resides in or to the entire floor. So if I just show you the parameters of this rule here, what it's saying is check the horizontal distances between these two components, and it's allowing a maximum distance of 3000 mil. And what it's doing is it's checking the IFC door panel property, which is revolving, and it's basically saying search for a swinging value within that proximity of it. Really simple. You know, when you're looking at creating some of these rules, they don't always need to be really difficult. This one here, and I'm no expert, could be defined relatively easily based on the information I know from my model itself. And that's the distance that I've got. I could exclude spaces, I could include spaces. I could even say, okay, if you can't find a swinging door within 3000 mil, where's the nearest swinging door? In case it exceeds that space. But nice and simple, that's exactly what that rule is doing. So let's go into some more detail in here. So in this case, we've got some spatial validation based checks. So this space has not been validated correctly. It's not been specified. You can see that the pipe shaft down here may have initially been a bit bigger, or there must have been something that was in this space that enabled the office space here to have to change. And what it's doing is it's not taking the whole global space of that area. It's a very small scale, but on a bigger scale, that could be quite an issue, especially when you're thinking about repurposing rooms and whatnot. So there's a series of other ones in here, the exact same thing. This is basically just saying that the component is blocking the space, and that space should be longer in effect. So I'll get into this one. This is a nice visual just to show you, and I'm not going to show you too many other examples, and I am going to go into the rule set manager. And so this one here was actually based on a customer request. They said to us, our wall quantities are not marrying up with what they should be. And this is what they had, and it's a wall within a wall, basically. So if I go down into the detail, you can see that wall 3.14 and 3.7 are inside each other. And if I just scroll a little bit further down to one of these components, you can see how it shimmers when you click on it. Visually, very, very difficult to see. Using a rule like from Solibri enable you to just instantly find it. You don't necessarily have to say that it's fully inside of it either. You can actually specify the tolerances. So you could say that it must be a duplicate, or it must be inside, it must be overlapping, and you can specify the actual physical tolerances themselves. So really nice little rule just to make sure that your quantities are as they should be in case there are components inside of them. So this is a whistle-stop tour of some of the rules that you can see have been run on this model, but where I want to show you is the rule set manager itself, because in here we can see what all the rules are, and this is all out of the box. So I say to a lot of people, you can either look at what the software can do, and you can see, okay, great, there's accessibility based checks for doors, ramps, roofs, stairs, windows, etc., etc. But you might have your own preference, you might have your own components, and you might have your own ways that you would want to run what the rule is doing on your own model. So don't be limited, don't feel that this is limited to those components, don't feel that what you're seeing on screen is limited in any way, shape or form to what it's checking as an example. It is just an example. So you can customize these, you can create your own workspace down here for what you want to check for. Component distance, I showed you this one, you know, you specify the components that you want to check. You've got the escape route analysis, which is obviously part of what I showed you earlier. There's loads, model comparisons. So as you're working your way through the life cycle of a project, it might be that things are changing, things are being added, removed. You're working with subcontractors or companies that are saying, yeah, that's fixed, that's fixed. You might have actually created another problem. So using the model comparison enable you to take revision A versus revision B and check to see what's changed, both in terms of components and in terms of spaces. And we do find that components have been added, but the naming of them hasn't been appropriately assigned, that sort of thing. So there's real value in just being able to check that at your varying stages. And I'm just in common rules. I've not gravitated over to the other folders yet. So big part of my job is helping people to understand, what do you want to do? What do you want to check for? What are your highest priorities? Where do you go beyond clash detection and beyond, you know, not having Solibri in place to then having a return on investment because you saved a ton of time by validating your spaces, or you delivered Kobe from Solibri using some rule sets and classifications. So lots of value out of here, out of the box. In terms of structural checks, MEP checks, and I will suggest at this point moving forwards that we take this conversation offline if anybody's interested in what they're seeing, because I'm always happy to talk about what's in here and arrange sort of conversation after the fact. Communication, this is where I create that presentation from my checking results. So I took 4 just BCFs that we build together. Yes, okay, there are some duplicates in there, so this is another sort of part of the process to just verify what we're seeing. But anything that we want to export, tons of customization work can be done in here in terms of who you're sending the BCFs out to. It doesn't have to all be in one presentation. You can split this out so that the different people you want to send it to can receive their own presentations. You can go back over your notes. This is the BCF snapshot that we took from earlier, and you can export that out through BCF and report it, or you can take an export of this in Excel and have a summary report. It's your preference, really. But information takeoff is the last part of my demonstration. I can probably do this in about a minute or two. And really what this enables us to do is both design verification, take information out of the model. So take off all of my architectural components, and there they are. The leftmost column in all of Solibri is your filterable column and your sortable column. So that's just not filterable, sortable column. So if I wanted to sort by type, I could just drag type over here, and that's exactly how I would sort it. So there's some really nice ways of being able to just build very quick takeoffs. You could do takeoffs based on classifications that then pull through to your selection basket. So if I used this classification for columns, and I added it just into my selection basket, I could then use the takeoff to take off the building element quantities of my selected, which in a summary would then give me that information. Hang on, it might all be in there. Nonetheless, I'll come back to that. Teething problems, but it's really simple, and you can export that information out. I could do the same for spaces as well. I won't do takeoff selected, I will do takeoff all in spaces, so I can show you how that works. I can see all of the ground floor spaces here, but if I wanted to see what they're being used for, then I could just sort by the circulation spaces too. So really nice and simple ways. You can do tons of different things within the information takeoff area in terms of the information. I'll show you. So when we go to add data into here, you can just see the breadth of data that you can pull in into this information takeoff. Fundamentally, the Kobe deliverable uses ITO more than anything else, just simply because of the way that they build the picture for the Kobe spreadsheets. But that's a whistle-stop tour of Solibri Office Workflow that's harmonized with the presentation that I showed you earlier. I'll just jump back to my presentation really, and just say that these are the products. I've showed you Solibri Office today. We do have a team subscription, we've got an individual subscription, we've got perpetual licenses. You can use our e-commerce platform to buy our software now if you wanted to buy a single user subscription license for 12 months. So you can do that. I won't get into too much detail on the other products as I've already covered them as well. But again, I just want to take you back to, well, I will in a moment. Let's talk about this first. So a few of our customers. So for those of you that may be scratching your head thinking, is this applicable to me? Well, 60% of the top 30 contractors are using Solibri. And if you don't include infrastructure, utilities, then it's more like 80% of the top 30 contractors are using Solibri. And it's not just the contractors, architects, engineers, owners, consultants. We have a huge stake in education in the UK and Ireland. 14 universities are teaching Solibri actively, on their courses in the UK and Ireland, and I try and work as closely as I can with those. And Solibri is being used to quality assure models on projects such as Battersea Power Station and Manchester Airport. And that's bigger picture, but it's also being used on schools, small office blocks, and so on. So in terms of fitting the bill, our price model is flexible enough to say that you don't always have to spend an arm and a leg, but sometimes if you spend just a little bit, your return on investment, as you've seen within what you can get out of the software, could be tenfold. So this is what I was going to say. So just again, to hear it from the horse's mouth before we open up to any questions that may be there, take Rob's feedback from Bon Brian. It plays a huge part in our processes, assuring that we don't just sit still and keep improving the quality. We can fix problems, improve the design, and then can make a great build for our clients. I found myself surrounded by IFC files and needed to put them together and thoroughly check them. I do deficiency detection. It's the only program that actually does that for us. And aside from what the customers are saying about the use of Solibri, from our perspective to you, it's a hand-holding product. It's not a box shifting tool. It's not something I would sell you today and then say good luck. It's something that I would be more than happy to support you on in your journey throughout 2022, and continue on. And it's a very capable piece of software, and sometimes when things are so capable, it can leave you feeling like you've got a mountain to climb. And one of the things we always say to people is think big but start small, and we'll take quick wins out of the software to give you some sort of productive return on investment. But over time, it's a cultural change, and we find that with almost everybody we work with that really gets stuck into Solibri, is it culturally changes their company and the way that they work. So our support is there to help that. We have got another workshop series playlist on YouTube, which goes into the detail of pretty much everything I've gone into today. It is hosted by myself and our technical support team. We go into COBie in more detail. We go into model checking in more detail, classifications, information takeoffs, the solution center for management of licenses, everything that you hopefully would need to get a better understanding of how Solibri works. Next year, we're going to continue that on as well. So we've got one more session this year, which is on the 9th of December, which is how to interrogate and annotate those models. And that is everything from me. So thank you to everybody that has joined us today. If you do want to get in touch with me, then you can use your camera to scan that QR code and it will bring my contact details up in your phone. So you can drop me an email or give me a call. There's a few playlists on YouTube, actually, one of which literally talks about the definition of rules and how to create them. The first video, funnily enough, called My First Rule. So it helps you to build your own rule sets within Solibri. And if you want to download a trial of Solibri to get playing with it, then feel free to do that as well. But I will pause there and just check out if there are any questions at all from anybody. In answer to your question, yes, the webinar has been recorded, and everybody that has joined us today and unfortunately hasn't joined us today will receive a copy of that. In terms of the MEP aspects, we allow services to run through the rules but not above rules. Is it possible to check services running above rules? Yes, it is, but what would be really good to do, and I've got your details, would be to actually take you through that process on your model itself, if you have that available to you, would be to sit down with me and my technical services team to say, this rule, we need to create this, let's sit down and go through this together and find out where the limitations are and what we can do. So it might be that we're looking at spaces surrounding distances between spaces, cross-discipline, that sort of thing, to be able to understand which rule would be best to check that. So leave that part with me. Does Solibri integrate with Autodesk Construction Cloud Services, i.e. Autodesk Docs? Good question. That's probably one of our bigger challenges, is being able to work with companies that, such as Autodesk, in terms of integrations, but takes us right back to the roots, and that is that Solibri endorsing OpenBIM, having worked with IFC and BCF, means that if other products can work with that too, then there's a process there, but a full-on integration, just not yet. And I say just not yet because I know that we'll always be pushing for it. So I'll just hold out. Hopefully that's answered your questions, and I'll just hold out if there are any other questions at all. For any questions that have come in, I will drop you all an email just to make sure that I have answered your question appropriately as well. And if any next actions need to come out of that, then more than happy to arrange meetings and have conversations. Okay. Well, thank you to everybody that's joined us today. And as I said, the door's always open. So if you ever want to have a conversation with me, then please do feel free to get in touch. And the recording will be sent out to everybody too. But yep, thanks again for joining us, and hopefully see you at the next one. Take care, everybody.